Hello everyone, this is the Promoters channel. Today I'll be repairing this kind of gearbox. This is a Zanrat fabric 6S685 gearbox. It's from a Chinese King Long bus. Here is the nameplate. As you can see, it's made in China. Everything is written in hieroglyphs. 6S685.
The gear ratios are 6.75 and 0.83. So the sixth gear here is an overdrive. 11.5 is the oil capacity in liters.
So here I found the production date. Well, this is the production date of this Telma electromagnetic brake. Well, you can roughly say it's the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. The mileage is about 600,000 kilometers. And what was the problem? Right here, where the electromagnets are, electromagnetic brake, there's one disc here, and on this side there's another disc just like it. And it started touching these plates here, which hold the electromagnetic coils. Here you can see what a plate looks like. That, let's say, is almost undamaged, right? And here's what a plate looks like that was touched by this disc. You can see that it got bent. You can see that it gets so hot, and the disc with friction pushes it over, pushes it here and wears it down. It should look like this, but it doesn't. So what do we see? This is how the shaft wobbles. This is how the shaft moves. So these brake discs, the electromagnetic ones, started moving like this and touching these plates. And here in the front is the primary shaft. It's also wobbling all over. There's this kind of longitudinal plate. And when you turn it there, you hear something rattling inside. So apparently the bearings have fallen apart. Something happened to the bearings. We'll take it apart and check. This is a Chinese gearbox. But the year of manufacture is either 2013 or 2014. This is a 6-speed without a splitter, 6 gears. Alright, I'm removing the coil. Some of the bolts came off easily, but some were really tough. I had to use a lot of force. I used this ratchet to turn them. You instantly sense it's from China's auto industry. So there are adjustment plates here. I marked them. Now I'm collecting them all. I'm tying them together and labeling them. This was from here. All right, next I'm removing the second brake disc. All right, and I'm removing the bracket that holds the coils. I'm unscrewing the speedometer sensor now. I've prepared a container draining the oil. Alright? Well, as you can see, the oil is full of metal shavings. It's like silver paint. There's so much metal shavings in there, and they're really fine, so it's possible that it's even aluminum shavings. It may have even damaged the gearbox casing itself, like the bearing seat, due to the large amount of metal shavings. The level is normal, 11 liters as expected. Next I need to remove the flange and rear cover. I removed the flange and you can see the seal there. Here it is, the seal. It got knocked out of there. I'm removing the cover. We see that there's a stop bolt here, a stop bolt. The ball joint, let's say, for the clutch fork is also completely worn out. It needs to be replaced as well. Next, I'm removing the cap. I'm removing the front cover. And here's what I want to say. You can immediately tell it's from China. I don't know how to explain it, but you can instantly feel that this gearbox is made in China. Take the bolts, for example, right? They should all be in good condition. But when I unscrew them, they're all like this. They're all oxidized, all rusty. It's worse where there are through holes on the opposite side. This is a blind hole, that one is a through hole. Here's my bolt. It got so oxidized that the bolt came out together with the aluminum threads. So that's it, the threads are ruined. I've already sprayed WD-40 here and tapped it. That's it, the threads are ruined. When I began unscrewing the nearby bolt, it started moving, but then the head snapped off. I mean, the steel in these bolts, you can tell it's not the same. It oxidizes, it rusts. I don't know what else is happening to it. I've got a stub stuck here, but it's not critical. You can drill and rethread it, but still. It's in moments like these that you can immediately tell it's Chinese. I took out the washer, the oil deflector. You can see, it's all worn out. Now I'm removing the front cover. I removed the front cover. And right away, what can we see? That the bearing. You can see that all the bearings are worn out. Basically, just as I thought, the bearings have failed. Well, of course, I'll check the cones and the rings. They probably got damaged too. Now I need to remove the gear shift mechanism. Next, I need to take out the reverse gear. I open this cover and remove this shaft. This is the shaft that holds the intermediate reverse gear. Here is the gear itself. We need to knock this shaft out and remove the gear. You can knock it out from the inside, or you can use a puller here. Or just screw in a bolt and try to pry it out with the pry bar. To avoid mixing up how it was positioned, I marked the teeth with a marker and also mark the housing on this side so it will be put back in its original place just as it was before. Next, I unscrew these two bolts. This is the fork shaft. Here they are, the ones that engage 5th and 6th gear. Since our gearbox is an overdrive, the gear ratio is less than 1, so we have direct drive. This is the input shaft, 5th gear, and this gear here, this one is 6th gear. That's why this fork operates through a lever. All the other forks work directly, but this one uses a lever. This is done so there isn't any inconsistency in the gear shift lever. I'm now unscrewing the holder and moving both shafts with the forks. Now I also need to unscrew these plugs and the sensor from the back of the gearbox on the gear shift side. If I'm not mistaken, the sensor is for reverse gear, and these are just plugs used during the installation of the forks so you can guide them in place. That's why I'll unscrew them so I can pry the forks out. I flipped the gearbox, hooked it to the tetcher. Now I'll lift the housing. Alright, that's it. I've taken out the shaft. Basically, there don't seem to be any issues with the gears. The gears all look good. This is the sensor that goes to the speedometer. Alright, I've taken out all the shafts. Now, I'll figure out and check what kind of bearings are here. I'll probably take apart the secondary shaft, check the cones, all the rings, and inspect the bearings. We can also see a deposit here. This black deposit doesn't belong. The gearbox was just running on bad oil. Over there, where the plugs are, there are these retainers. They stick out. But I'll show and explain all of this during reassembly later. Because of this oil, it wore out the main shaft bearing. You can see that all the rollers are worn out. And the secondary shaft started pushing forward here. That's it. It started shifting over here. And accordingly, the brake disc started pressing against these plates of these coils. Apparently, it all happened because of this bearing. I'll disassemble everything now to check for defects. At the very least, all the bearings in this gearbox need to be replaced. I'll say it again, it's already done about 600,000 kilometers. At the very least, all the bearings need to be replaced. And when I take it apart, the cones and rings will probably need to be replaced too. This is a Chinese-made gearbox. I have the nameplate shown at the beginning of the video, so there's this kind of gearbox. It's also a Zanrad fabric, also a 6-speed. It has the same gear ratio as that other gearbox, 6.75 and 0.83. But this gearbox is from a NIFAS bus. It's made in Russia. Zanrad Fabrik Kama. But on its plate it shows a different model 6S1200. There's also BQ, the English letters. So over there we have S685. This one is 6S1200, but the housings are absolutely identical. The difference is in the cap here or the rear cover, but those are minor details. This gearbox has under 200,000 kilometers. The bus was decommissioned, but the gearbox stayed and has been sitting here for years, which explains its condition. But the point is it should be like new inside. Well, it's done less than 200,000 kilometers. So what's the point? Oh, and there's another issue with it. The casing is cracked in this spot. There's a crack running all the way across the casing, like this. The internals should be in perfect condition. That's why I'm going to take it apart and check it now. If everything fits the other gearbox, the Chinese one, then I'll just take all the internals, all the shafts from this gearbox, the input, output, intermediate shafts, everything. I'll put them in that gearbox, in that housing. That's the plan. So I don't have to buy anything to repair that gearbox. I'll repeat, this gearbox is almost new. It's under 200,000 kilometers and the bus only ran for 2 years. It's a new bus. Alright, so here I am taking it apart. Took off the cover, took off the flange, and right away I see the number 13, 11, 304, 248. That's the secondary shaft number. Now I look at this shaft 13, 11, 304, 248. We can see that the secondary shaft is absolutely identical. Just as I thought, most likely. The whole gearbox is absolutely identical, even though the gearbox models are different. One is made in Russia and one is made in China. Now, next I compare the primary shafts. This one is my Chinese shaft. This one is my Zanrad Fabrik Kama. Let's look at the number on the Chinese shaft. 13 10 300 2001. 13 10 300 2001. We can see that the primary shafts are absolutely identical. This is the condition of the Chinese shaft, and this is the condition of the Zanrad Fabrik Kama shaft. By the way, there was still factory oil filled here. We can see that after 200,000, it's clean, no residue, nothing at all. The oil recommended by the manufacturer. Here, it's already clear that they experimented, poured in whatever was available, whatever was cheaper, and that's why we see this situation. Alright, next I'm looking at the intermediate shaft number 1310 303 076. Now, let's check the number on the Chinese shaft 1310 303 076. So we can see that everything is absolutely identical. 1311 304 255. This is our Zanrad Fabrik Kama 1311 304 255. Now let's check the code number 13 10 302 023. 13 10 302 023. No further comparison is needed. Everything is clearly the same. So what did I do? I transferred all the bearing races from the Zanrad Fabrik Kama gearbox, Inku, to the Chinese one that I'm going to assemble. I'm installing all the gearbox internals into this housing. So I installed the retainers, I installed the clutch. Updated info shows this gearbox has done 100,000, not 200,000. It worked for about a year, so it's basically new. Just broken in. Well, if you look at its condition, everything here is perfect. Well, it's a new gearbox. Take a look at these splines here. For example, on the coupling. You can see they're in like new condition. Look at the splines on the cone, on the ring. They're also in perfect shape. The ring fits on. Let's see how it fits. The gap is about 2 millimeters. Everything's like new. So What's next? I'm installing the cover. I have a hole here in my table. I'm installing the cover more or less evenly. I put a small board under here. And first, I install the primary shaft. Next, I put the ring and the cone onto the shaft. Now I need to install the shafts, the secondary shaft and the intermediate shaft. And at the same time, I also need to install all these forks. Here are these sliders, and I need to put these forks in place. That's the process. It's complicated. Now I need to bend the shaft aside like this and put the secondary shaft in this place. Then I'll connect them like this. I bent the shaft with a pry bar like this. This shaft goes this way. And I lifted this shaft a bit. It was hanging like this, and now I'm bringing them together. This is how I set the shafts. And now my task is to install the forks. This is also difficult right now because I have to fit each fork in, and there's also a deep guide here. It tends to stand perpendicular in this plane, but I need to fit those protruding forks in there. Well, I'll say there's another way. Corpus. You can just assemble these shafts, put some bottles or some guides under them, set them up somehow, tie them together, corpus, and put the housing on first. Well, I don't know, basically. You just have to struggle with it a bit here. Everything is ready immediately. Just close the housing and you're done. So, what do? I use a pry bar like this, lift it up with a pry bar, and put it under the shaft. Well, I found a plate and put spacers here, so it doesn't wobble back and forth. And now, I'm installing the forks. I've installed them roughly. Now I'm going to take out these shims and adjust everything so it fits properly. The back part didn't fit during installation, and I had to lift the shaft a little. And again, kind of lift this fork too and guide it here. Well, I'll say this method is easier in some ways and harder in others. It's easier because you don't have to align the shafts or make any templates. The cover itself serves as the template right away. But it's more difficult again because these forks are hard to insert, so you have to twist them here. I've assembled it both ways, but this time I chose to do it like this. Now, my task is to check that all the forks are sitting on the couplings. I'm checking the reverse gear. We see that both ends are in place. Next, first gear, second gear. Here my slider is in place. On this side my slider is also in place. And here is the third slider as well. Right here, there it is, you can see it. You can also see that it's in the coupling. Third and fourth gear. There are two sliders here. This one is in place, this one is in place, and fifth and sixth gears, let's check. This one is also in place, this one is in place. And on the fifth and sixth gears, you also need to make sure that this little ball doesn't pop out. If you just pull it this way, it'll just fall out. Before putting on this top cover, I tie this spot with a thread. Just a simple thin thread. Later, this thread will be ground up. It's nothing to worry about. There's no oil pump here, nothing like that. So nothing will happen to the thread. But so it doesn't fall out before I insert these side holders, these bolts I put in the thread. Well, that's it. Basically everything is assembled here. My primary shaft, or rather the primary shaft bearing, I didn't press it in enough. It needs to go in a bit more. That's why my secondary shaft is now resting on the primary shaft. And that's why there's a slight difference in height, just a couple of millimeters. But that's a minor detail. And about the rust, like I said, the gearbox has been lying around for 3 or 4 years. I don't know exactly. But it's just that kind of rust. You can just wipe it off with your finger. It's not deep, just surface corrosion. Nothing serious. Probably from condensation. I should have turned it over from time to time. Well, that's it. Now my task is to degrease this area again with solvent, apply sealant, and put the cover onto the housing. Next, I need to insert these retainers into these holes. They're located right here. Before shifting gears, they lock the fork in a certain position. The front position is neutral. This, for example, is third gear, and this is fourth. Alright, the retainer is in place. I put a little grease there so they stay in position. I'm turning the housing now so it stays in place. I degreased it again with solvent, then applied the sealant. Here, so that this ball joint doesn't fall out between the fork and this shaft, I put on a rubber band. Later, I'll cut it through this window and take it out. So, it's temporary. So, the forks. I set the spacing roughly, meaning these two should be a bit closer together and these two a bit farther apart. But anyway, when I put the housing on, I'll still have to move them a little. I don't know yet, the rubber band might get in the way. Alright, let's see now. Okay, well, basically everything is ready. I'm putting the housing on. The forks don't line up here. So apparently this one is a bit off. I just adjusted them a bit from here. 2 of them went in. And the third one is fitting in as well. Alright. See, this one's in, this one's in, this one. There's still one more that won't go in. I'm checking that the ball sitting in place, that it hasn't fallen out. Alright, next, I'm making sure all the shafts are seated properly. Here are the first, second, third and fourth shafts. All the shafts are in place and all the retainers are in place. You definitely need to check this. Alright, next the forks are in place. Now I need to tighten these bolts and align the guides. The cover is about to fall off. Tighten the bolts, one on this side, one on that side, and take out this rubber piece of mine. That's it. Okay, I'm aligning the holes. I've already screwed it in from that side. I'm lining it up evenly like this.
Alright, next I got the rubber gasket out. With it the gear is engaged. Now I'll tighten it. Everything will fall into place.
Alright, I still removed this cover because there was a lot of metal shavings under it. I took it off to clean everything, cleaned it all up, washed it. Now I'll show you how it goes back on. There's a thrust washer like this in there. It even has a number. That's the washer inside. This way it goes towards the bearing. Then there's a ring like this, and then a cover. Next, I install the reverse gear. When I was disassembling, I made marks here with markers, and also on the gear itself with a marker, so that I can put it back in the same position it was working in. That's all. Now the shaft is in place. Now I need to screw in the bolt with the stopper here so the shaft doesn't come out. Alright, that's it. Reverse gear is in place. Now I'll close the cover. So I'm closing the reverse gear cover. I'm reusing the old gasket since I don't have a gearbox repair kit. That's why I'm reusing old gaskets with sealant in some spots and making new homemade ones elsewhere. That's how the gasket is installed. That's it, I've got reverse gear working now. Now I'll immediately install the rear cover, the flange. Next I'm installing the rear cover which goes under the flange. I'm keeping the old bearing. The seals and rubber gasket are old, but still good and soft. I recently applied sealant. Sometimes it's easier to keep old rubber gaskets and replace them with new ones that harden and leak within a month. Also, basically, this cover can be installed in any position, however you want. Well, you can... I'm looking at this spot by the casting. There's a rib here, and I looked at the cover and saw the imprint of the rib in the same place. I'm putting it back exactly as it was. I'm going to install the connector and show you something else. There's a system like this here. In this spot there's a little cup. I'll show you what kind on the second unit in a moment. There's a little cup there. So when it rotates, the oil gears are removed from it, and through this channel it kind of flows down here and by gravity ends up right here. And here there's a hole. There's a drilling in the block. The oil flows by gravity to this bearing. No pressure, no pump. But the channel is made. It's a pretty clever system. Now I'll show you what this looks like. This is the oil collection cup. Here it is. The primary shaft rotates and centrifugal force causes the oil to hit here and drain into this cup and then through the hole further. There's a channel over there. There's drilling here. It comes here. And this washer that I installed, here it is with these holes and slots. This area is filled with oil and it flows by gravity to the bearing. This solution was made to prevent oil starvation in the bearing. Next, I installed the cup. My gasket is old. I removed it carefully. It didn't even separate from the cup. I just coated it with sealant and it's fine. It'll work. The oil seal is also old. I tightened the spring a bit. We'll put a little oil here so the oil seal goes in smoothly without scoring. So after I tightened the cup, the shaft has no play at all. That's because there's a tapered bearing with rollers here. If it were a ball bearing or a regular roller bearing, the shaft would have some play. But with tapered rollers, the shaft has no play. E. So it spins freely. There's no play. Next, I install the rear cover. I was about to install the flange, but when I looked inside, I realized I forgot to install the speedometer drive. Well, that's not a big deal. I took the cover off again. Before installing the cover, the speedometer drive is installed first. Just like this. It simply goes on like that. Then the flange holds it in place and it doesn't turn anymore. So sometimes this kind of mistake happens. You forget to install the speedometer drive all the time. Well, it's okay. I installed the speedometer drive and I'm putting the cover back on. Alright, that's it. I installed the speedometer drive, replaced the cover, and now I'm installing the flange. I always coat the splines with sealant, since leaks sometimes occur between the shafts and splines, causing oil to seep out. That's why I do it this way. That's it. I'm installing the flange. Now I need to tighten it, but it's spinning. So what should I do? I'm just going to engage 2 gears now. There, that's it. I've engaged 2 gears. Now the cover is jammed. Tap it, just in case something's off, so it sits right. tap and tighten. That's it. The flange is tight. Now I need to install this stopper. The top hole is for the reverse gear fork. This is the reverse gear sensor. And these are just plugs. These holes are needed to access the retainers that hold the forks in place. Also, these bolts that hold the 5th and 6th gear fork are not tightened yet. Next, I will install the gear shifting mechanism. Now I need to take a look at the gear shifting mechanism. Maybe it's more accurate to call it the gear selector mechanism, but that doesn't matter. So what do I see here? My shaft has a bit of play. This gearbox has done about 500,000 or 600,000 kilometers. And here's the shaft play. We can see that there's already a gap between the oil seal and the shaft. So now I'll open this cover, check the condition of the shaft, the oil seal and the bushing. Well, there's also this kind of plate that goes here, to call it. It's a safety device to prevent two gears from engaging at once. If you look at the slot, only one fork can fit into it. Two gears can't be engaged at the same time anymore. This is 3rd and 4th. This is 5th and 6th gear. And this is 1st and 2nd. And this one here is reverse gear. So when you engage reverse, you also need to apply a little extra force to the lever to shift into reverse. This is controlled by this lock here, which creates extra resistance when shifting into reverse. Like this. I can't overcome it with just my hand anymore. We can see that the shaft is still in perfect condition, just in time, yeah. 500 to 600,000, just right. From the condition of the seals, you can see that they all completely settled and hardened. You can see that water has started to get in, but the shaft hasn't failed yet. The shaft is still in normal condition. I'm just going to replace these seals now, change the bushing, and that's it. I'm installing a new bushing, a new seal, and a new dust cover, and a small bottom seal. I replaced the bushing and installed the seal. There's also a small seal on the opposite side, and there's a gap between the seals and the bushing. I filled this gap with grease. It's kind of a system where the grease is supposed to be there, and this small seal holds the grease in place. Alright, I applied the sealant and I'm putting it on. As you can see, after replacing the bushing and the seals, there's no play at all. Everything fits very tightly now. This kind of minimal repair will help save this shaft, which is a very expensive shaft. Alright, now I'm reinstalling the gear shifting mechanism. Here all my forks are in the neutral position. The levers here are also all in the neutral position. This plate is installed in place for the double gear engagement safety lock. This is how it fits with this part in the guide. That's it. This is how it fits. I applied some sealant here and I'm installing it. Alright, that's it. The cup and covers are in place. Now I'm going to install the casing. I'm not installing the clutch fork yet. The clutch fork will be new. It's still on the way. We've ordered it and it's coming. There's a thrust ball here, like this. You can see how worn out it is. It screws in here and is adjustable. On the opposite side, it pushes out. Now, about the fork. You can see the wear here. It's almost worn through. This ball goes in here. Like this, it's almost worn through. So all of this will be replaced with new parts. And here, where the rod from the cylinder goes in, here as well. And here, where the release bearing sits, here too. Both the thrust side surfaces are worn down, and these ones, the end surfaces too. So I'm waiting for a new fork for now. Next, I'm installing the coil mounting bracket. Next, I'm installing the electromagnetic brake disc. All right, I've tightened the disc. Now I'm installing the coils, electromagnetic brake. There are adjustment washers here. I've marked how they were positioned. First first plates, second, third, fourth. I have 4 bundles tied together. I tightened the bolts a little and left them so there would be a gap. Now I take the adjustment plates and insert them. That's it. The coils are in place and tightened. I'm reinstalling the speedometer sensor. All right, the gearbox is assembled. Everything. The gears, everything shifts, everything's good. It's still without oil, that's why it's making a bit of noise. Once I add the oil, it'll run smoothly. It's still empty. There's also a second brake disc like this that goes here. But it needs to be installed in place. First of all, you still need to even it out a bit. Grind it down with an angle grinder and install it in place because the frame gets in the way there. First, install the gearbox, then the disc. Well, that's basically it. I don't have the fork here yet. You just screw in the pin and it just goes onto this pin, fits right on. That's it. This is the video I ended up with. Thank you all for watching. Good luck to everyone. Goodbye.